We all know the importance of a good credit score and what it can do for your future, your investments, and even for your family. You see, if you have a good credit score, it determines what school your kids go to. If you have a good credit score, it determines the type of education that they get because of the school zone that they're assigned to. If you have a good credit score, it can determine the neighborhood that you live in, which then leads into your kids obviously going to a good school, which can also lead into you having better business relationships because you're around other like-minded individuals and other people that may be looking at certain situations from a business scope or from a business type of view. Also, if you have a good credit score, it can also determine whether you get the job or whether they pass on and give that opportunity to someone else, because we know that some employers are taking a look at credit reports to make sure that, well, the person that they're hiring is financially responsible and that they are not seen as a liability. This is just the world that we live in today, which is unfortunate for so many people, but it is the hard truth. Now, a few weeks ago, I made a video about President Joe Biden, wanting to get rid of the big three, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Now, this video right here has just under 100,000 views, but one thing that really caught my eye, which is what I want to really focus this video on, is the responses that I started getting from that video. Half of us were saying, heck yeah, let's get rid of the credit bureaus. Let's start a new system because it's kept me from buying my own house. It's kept me from getting a business loan. It's kept me and my family from getting into a better neighborhood. But then we have the other half of us. And the other half of us were thinking, no, wait. Let's keep it just as it is. I paid my bills on time. I did everything that I need to do. I had 2 jobs so that I can pay off, let's say, my student loan, so that I can pay off the credit cards that I had. I did that. I went into the debt snowball. I went into the debt avalanche where I started paying off the highest interest first and working my way down. I earned my $750. I earned the house that I live in. I earned everything that I have right now and the way that my credit is reported because I was responsible. So the purpose of this video is to kind of go off of more so the comments that I saw and present both sides of the board of the pros, if this plan were to actually go into place, how it affects you, and the cons, if this plan were to go into place, if and when it goes into place, how it's going to affect you. So it would mean a lot to me because there is quite a bit of research that goes into making videos like this. If you hit that subscribe button, if you haven't done so already, if you're not already a subscribe member, hit the subscribe button down below, join the official community so that you don't miss a beat every time we're dropping content like this. And it would also mean a lot if you just go ahead and share this with someone that you know is either looking to get their credit right or just wants more information of this plan and how it could affect them. Either one is cool with me. And now let's continue with the video. Now, before getting to the first con, it's important to know, and I'm going to give you the 3,000 foot overview of what this plan actually has. As always, you can find the full breakdown to the actual PDF, the actual plan that they have that they want to put into place. You can check that out. That is going to be linked down in the description. We know that right now, as it stands, the credit bureaus, or the way that it reports onto your credits, will stay on there. A negative report will stay on there for at least 7 years. This means that if you had a late payment, or if maybe you fell behind and now you have a charged off account, regardless of what that is, whether you were 19 years old and now let's say you're 25, it's a completely different situation. Well, guess what? It's still going to reflect on your credit report. It's 7 years. But the way that the Biden administration wants to do it, they actually want to get rid of that and bring it down to 4 years, which we're going to break that down here later on in this video of how that actually affects you. The second thing that we want to pay attention to is medical debt. Things like medical debts would not reflect your new credit report if it were to go into this new scoring model. In addition to that, they would also add things like rental payments and utility payments as well, which you can't get right now unless you went off with a third-party vendor like Rental Karma or something like that, which, by the way, you can find the link to that as well down in the description with the $25 off coupon code if you decide to have at least 2 years of your rent reported onto your credit report right now. If you've never had rent reported onto your credit and you have established credit, you can see a 30 to 40 point bump. If you don't have any credit at all, you can literally go from a 0 to right around a 600 just by adding that rent. Now, the third thing to really pay attention to, and in my opinion, this is maybe going to be the most important piece, is that this is going to be taken away from the credit bureaus, meaning they will be completely shut down since they are for-profit companies. They are not government agencies like the CFPB is, and it would be put on a public registry that's governed by the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Here's why this is important to know, and let's go ahead and lead into the first pro and the first con, and that's this. If this does go into a public registry, and the CFPB is the one that's in charge of seeing, okay, does this belong here on this file, or should we remove this negative item from this person's credit report? And now that we're on the subject of the CFPB, here's really two pros that I can see going in this direction if the CFPB were to take charge of this public registry. The first thing is, we do know that the credit bureaus tend to favor creditors and collection agencies significantly more than what they would do for us, the consumer. It's why we have some of the consumer protection laws that had to be written in order to protect us whenever we go and file disputes, like the 611, the 609s, the 623s, 624s. This is why we have all of those items in place so that we can go ahead and dispute and get these items off of our reports, because of the way that, one, the information is sold off once, let's say, it's reported on our credit, or let's say the credit bureaus, that information is sold off, which again works against you as a consumer. Remember, these companies are not necessarily designed to protect you. They are seen as a, let's say, as a mediation company, the middleman, in order for that filed. But remember, they side with these credit bureaus, which is why it gets harder and harder for people to remove items from their credit report. Here's a second pro that I see. With this being on a public registry and with it being ran by the CFPB, then the odds of your information getting sold is actually slim to none, because it would actually be a conflict of interest between the consumer and the government coming together to have that information sold. This is why we've been seeing crackdowns on places like Twitter, places like Amazon, places like Facebook, for the way that they have been kind of selling that information off. This is why the government has been cracking down on them, which is a completely different subject. But we bring that in because if this something like this were to happen, this means that your information wouldn't necessarily bounce from party to party to party. It would just be in one place. But with anything that's an upside, there's also a downside. So let's talk about the cons that we're dealing with when we are talking about this going to the CFPB to regulate. And that's this. Right now, like we mentioned earlier, even though it's difficult to get an item removed sometimes from a credit report because they come back validated or verified, it's not impossible, because there are strategies, there's letters that you send out, and there's a certain process that's followed in order to get these items removed and clean someone's credit. But with it going to the public registry, no one really knows what the new system is like. No one really knows, okay, can I backtrack it? Can I go, even though it said it was verified, can I send now this letter out and then kind of, go around the loophole with, technically now I have this law that I can use in my favor, if they weren't able to accurately assess or accurately validate and verify that this is actually my debt, and bam, it comes off. But with it being on a public registry, how much more difficult is this actually going to be to get these items removed? Because, well, are we going to have to see a change in laws and consumer laws of what protects us? Because now it's not just, let's say, the consumer versus a creditor, or the consumer now trying to petition or ask the credit bureau to remove an item, or demanding in some cases to remove an item. Now it's the consumer having to go and pretty much face a government entity, again, the CFPB, even though it's on a public registry. Now here's a second con that I really think we should pay attention to, and that's how slow the government is to respond. Is this going to be on a public registry where you have to just file online, which they're assuming, or they're saying that you would, or in some instances, are we still going to have to go to court if things go into deeper water, if you want to actually get an item removed from your credit report? The issue that I see with this is that the IRS and agencies like the IRS are already as slow as it is to distribute refunds, and already as slow as it is to respond and pick up calls for people. So how much slower, or how much can this actually slow down the process of someone actually getting an item removed from their credit reports, if, kind of like anything else with the government agencies, if there's not enough funding in order to keep them afloat? Because right now, we're honestly just not seeing that issue with the three, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Now, this comment right here kept coming up, whether you were for or against the big three going away, and that's the credit system, the way that it's built now. has a 7-year rule where in order for that item to come off, you have to wait 7 years. So let's say you were 20 years old and you were in college and you had to take on a job, but then you had to quit your job because you wanted to finish your studies and you had no one else that could take care of your bills for you. And let's say you fell behind onto credit cards, no matter how petty that, let's say that credit card was, if it was $1,000, $2,000, whatever that amount was, it would still be on your report even if you're 27 today, unless you've disputed those items. Let's take a look at another scenario. Let's say that you were once married and you went through a horrible breakup and then you had to file for bankruptcy. That's going to stay on your record for right around 10 years. Let's say that if you co-signed for someone because you wanted to be a good Samaritan, or you wanted to co-sign for a family member, which in most cases people are learning that, yeah, these are one of those favors that I'm probably better off just lending you money than actually putting my name on a title or putting my name on a loan for you. And that person decides to walk out on that loan. Now you have that repo on your credit, or you have that foreclosure because let's say you co-signed on their loan. Look, decisions like this, sometimes people do it with their best intentions, but it ends up kind of biting them in the butt on the back end because now they're having to wait 7 years. So I see both sides of the board. But now with the new credit system, it looks like they're actually looking to bring it down to 4 years. So the pro to this is that, like anything else, right? The faster it comes off of your credit, the faster you're able to go out on the back end, get another loan, purchase a new vehicle, get that business entity where you can get that business credit off the ground, or purchase that home, purchase a car, whatever you're looking to do. Here's the downside that I'm seeing with this though. The downside is that, like anything else, if it's a little bit too quick, people may not have as much respect or regard for the system in the way that it's intended to. Here's what I mean by that. If, let's say, I know that after 4 years it's going to come off, this means that I can literally just run up all of my credit card limits. This means that I can just pretty much purchase any car that I want. I can go ahead and get into, let's say, not a house, because obviously a house you'd get foreclosed on, but let's say I can go out, I can rent an apartment, wait the year, whatever it is for me to get evicted. And I know that after 4 years, I lived up my best life for 1 year. I just have to wait 4 years. 4 years goes in a blink of an eye and I have a clean slate. The issue with that is that, one, it trains people to have bad financial behaviors in the way that they utilize their money and the way that they spend it versus investing it. And the second thing is that it actually makes it more difficult for those of us that are more responsible with our finances and with our money, because now it puts lenders in a tighter situation of, okay, now we need to tighten up our lending criteria. Now we really need to take a look at, apart from someone, let's say, making their payments on time, or apart from how much credit they have available to their name, what were they doing? What are their spending habits like? And I think that this will ultimately change the way that the algorithm currently works right now for lenders. Again, this is for homes, this is for credit cards, this is for auto loans, whatever that looks like. I think that this would ultimately make it tougher for us to obtain financing, especially if you are kind of like on the verge of, you don't have great credit, so it's right in between, but you can still get a decent deal. It'll actually make it more difficult for you to get any type of financing. Now, like anything else, there's things that I agree with and things that I disagree with. So I'm going to give you my point of view on all of this. And again, this is just my opinion from reading through the comments and taking a closer look at this system and the way that it's going to shift the way that our credit score looks. All right. In the event that, let's say, it does shift into that 4-year model and, it wipes out completely and you no longer owe these credit card companies a dime, I could see this headed into the direction of having to have some type of stricter underwriting. Let's say if you have a 4-year window where, okay, you, let's say, have $0 that you owe to any credit card company or any bank, but the underwriter might ask you, prior to the 4 years, were you in some type of collection? Or prior to those 4 years, did you have a repo on your name? Now, obviously, this can get into some tricky territory, because could that maybe violate some of the rights that we have as consumers? Who knows? But it would make it harder for us to get some type of financing and some type of loan. Now, in my opinion, I think that maybe 4 years is a little too soon. So that's why I'm assuming that they would have some stricter regulations if the 4 years were to go into place. I think 5 years, no questions asked, would be a happy medium. And of course, the 7 years is just way too long, because who you are at 27 is a different person of who you are at 34. who you are at 40 is totally different from who you are at 47, especially if you're going through a divorce, especially if you are, went through some type of financial hardship, especially if you were just coming off of a pandemic and you lost a good portion of your income. So that's the first thing that I see with this. Here's the second. 75% of all credit reports currently have one or more negative items on there that are holding someone's credit from, again, going up a couple of points, whether that's 20 points, 30 points, 100 points, whatever that is. There is misinformation on those files, possibly even on your credit file right now, whether that's the misspelling of a name, whether that's the misspelling of an employer address, whether that's a misspelling of maybe an address, or if that's maybe some debt that shouldn't even be yours. Let's say you owed $5,000 and now they're trying to say that you owe $15,000, right? These are all erroneous items that shouldn't be on there to begin with, which, by the way that it works right now, you can get all of those items off by disputing. And if you are looking to dispute them, you can go ahead and find the letters down below where you can do that yourself through the credit cleaning bundles found on our website. The way that the credit bureaus are reporting right now, I think that the CFPB should get more strict and should keep them more accountable and hold them to a higher standard, the way that they are just having these items verified on people's credit report. I think that if they maybe switched around the way that these items were reported and actually validated it the way that the law says they should and actually kept them accountable, maybe some bigger fines, maybe with possibilities of not necessarily just shutting them down, but with the possibilities of, okay, well, you know what, for every erroneous report that you have, instead of it, let's say, being $1,000, we're actually going to bump that up to $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever that fine is. I can assure you, they would start tweaking the way that they actually start validating and verifying some of this debt that shouldn't even be on someone's credit report. So those are my thoughts on this. You let me know down in the comments. Again, are you for the complete change? Are you against the change because you worked way too hard in the past to get your credit where it is now? I'm so excited to hear your thoughts down in the comments. As always, if you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Join the official community. Don't forget that anytime we're not posting on here, we're posting over on the Inside with Irv show, which is our podcast style channel. So once again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, everyone, I will see you in the next video.